Chonde exposes, load shedding will mysteriously disappear before elections? Zambians are being told to observe carefully. As the country struggles under persistent load shedding, a powerful voice has stepped forward with a striking prediction: the closer we move to elections, the more electricity citizens may suddenly enjoy. Is this a coincidence of improved supply or a political pattern repeated across election cycles? Chonde's words have ignited debate, suspicion, and uncomfortable questions about power, accountability, and truth. Tonight, we examine what he said, why it matters, and whether Zambia has seen this movie before. Good day, viewers. Welcome to another edition of InspirAfrica Official. I'm Nakash, a casual opener. I hope you've been managing through this challenging week. For those of you joining us from Zambia, I know the power situation has been difficult, to say the least. Many of you are watching this video during those precious few hours when the lights are actually on. Lead story announcement. Today, we have a story that has sent shockwaves through Zambian social and political circles. A Catholic priest, a man of God, has made a bold prediction that has left government officials scrambling and citizens asking uncomfortable questions. Picture this: a nation plunged into darkness. 21 hours without electricity. Families huddled in the sweltering heat, their refrigerators silent, their businesses dying. Children unable to study. Hospitals struggling. A country brought to its knees by load shedding so severe it has become a national nightmare. But what if this suffering, this manufactured crisis, had a timeline? What if someone could predict, almost to the month, when the lights would mysteriously return? Not because of infrastructure improvements. Not because of rainfall. But because of something far more sinister: the electoral calendar. Does the Kariba Dam only fill when politicians need votes? Do the water levels at Zambia's hydroelectric facilities somehow know when it's election season? When a Catholic priest stands at the pulpit and tells his congregation to watch and observe how load shedding will reduce as 2026 approaches, what does he know that ordinary citizens don't? Is Father Chonde a prophet? Or is he simply speaking the uncomfortable truth that everyone whispers but few dare to say aloud? When a man of the cloth risks political backlash to warn his flock, when he stakes his reputation on a prediction that load shedding will mysteriously improve before elections, what evidence has he seen? And here's the question that should terrify every Zambian: if the government can end load shedding for elections, why not end it now? If relief is possible in 2026, why are children studying by candlelight in 2025? Are Zambian lives only worth saving when votes are at stake? And if Father Chonde is right, if the lights do return just before the polls open, what will that say about the system that governs you? Factual foundation. The revelation came to light this past Thursday, December 12, 2025, during a homily delivered by Father Chonde at his parish in Zambia. Father Chonde is no stranger to controversial statements. The Catholic priest from the Archdiocese of Ndola has built a reputation over the years as a prophetic voice, someone willing to speak truth to power even when it costs him politically. In 2018, he famously told Democratic Party candidate Harry Kalaba during a church service that he would one day become president. In January 2025, he faced pressure to retract a sermon comparing the current administration to the biblical King Herod, a cruel dictator who refused to relinquish power. But this Thursday's homily was different. This wasn't metaphorical. This wasn't biblical allegory. This was a direct, verifiable prediction about Zambia's electricity crisis. To understand the weight of Father Chonde's words, we must first understand the crisis itself. Zambia's load-shedding nightmare began intensifying in 2024, following one of the most severe droughts in recent history. The country, which relies heavily on hydroelectric power from the Kariba Dam and other facilities, found itself generating only 444.67 megawatts against a national demand of 2,200 megawatts during peak hours. By mid-2025, Zambians were enduring between 18 and 21 hours of daily power cuts. The government's explanation was consistent: drought had lowered water levels at the Kariba Dam. Low water means less electricity generation. It's a natural disaster, they said. Be patient, they urged. Relief is coming. Throughout 2025, Energy Minister Makozo Chikode and Eskom officials made repeated promises. Solar projects were being fast-tracked. A power interconnection with Mozambique would deliver 50 megawatts by year-end. The Kafue Gorge Lower Solar Project was groundbreaking. By 2026, they assured citizens, things would improve. Then came Thursday, December 12, 2025. Father Khan stood before his congregation and delivered a message that cut through the government's narrative like a knife. The location, his parish church. The audience, ordinary Zambians who had spent yet another day without electricity. The message: watch what happens as elections approach. Direct evidence. Let me share with you exactly what Father Khan said, in his own words, during that Thursday homily. This load shedding we are experiencing, you will see how it will go towards the elections. In 2026, it will reduce, but should that only be the case when we are voting? He didn't stop there. The priest pressed further, asking a question that has since gone viral across Zambian social media. No. All services should be provided properly, not just because we are going to vote. That's when there's power, that's when the water levels increase. At Kariba, that's when we have good rains. Think about that phrasing for a moment. That's when there's power. That's when the water levels increase. Father Khan is suggesting, no, he's directly stating that the timing of Zambia's electricity recovery is not coincidental. It's calculated. But Father Khan went even further, explaining his role and his refusal to stay silent. When justice comes, we will keep quiet. When people are living very well, we will keep quiet. As prophets, we are going to talk when things are not okay. We will keep talking until there's peace in the land. He continued, addressing the government directly in what can only be described as a challenge. To shut us up, leadership should be standard, it should be good, and people should live well, because when they are affected, we are also affected. Whatever is troubling people also troubles us as prophets. The government's response came swiftly, though notably not from President Hichilema himself. Energy Minister Makozo Chikoti, speaking just 1 week earlier at the Kafue Gorge Lower Solar Project ceremony in Kairundu, had preemptively tried to address such accusations. The minister's statement was emphatic, almost defensive. He stated that improvements should not be linked to the 2026 elections, but rather to long-term plans government has already set in motion. He urged citizens not to live in fear of continued load shedding, but to remain confident in government investments. But here's what makes Father Khan's prediction so explosive: the minister's own timeline confirms it. Government officials have repeatedly stated that Zambians will begin to feel the impact of ongoing energy sector investments in 2026. Not 2025. Not mid-2025. But 2026, the exact year of the elections. On social media and call-in radio programs, ordinary Zambians are echoing Father Khan's sentiments. During the EMV Tonight program in August 2025, caller after caller raised the same suspicion. Why are we exporting electricity when our people are suffering? Some alleged that power was being reserved to guarantee stability ahead of the 2026 election. One 55-year-old Zambian who voted for President Hichilema in 2021 sent an email to a political analyst that captured the national mood. I am in Zambia right now, and we have not had electricity for 3 consecutive days due to load shedding. It finally came today but lasted for only 45 minutes. I do not know what is worse, the absence of electricity or the tragic lack of leadership. The technical data makes the situation even more puzzling. As discussed on EMV Tonight, Zambia's installed capacity stands at 3,800 megawatts, far exceeding the peak consumption of 2,200 megawatts. Additionally, the Zambezi River Authority increased Zambia's water allocation from 8 billion cubic meters in 2024 to 13.5 billion cubic meters for 2025. So if capacity exists and water allocation increased, why has load shedding intensified? Father Chonde isn't asking citizens to believe in conspiracy theories. He's asking them to observe, to watch, to remember. And when 2026 comes, to judge for themselves whether the timing is coincidence or calculation. Deeper analysis. Father Chonde's statement raises profound questions about governance, accountability, and the manipulation of essential services for political gain. This isn't just about electricity. It's about trust. It's about whether a government serves its people year-round or only when it needs their votes. It's about the fundamental social contract between citizens and those who govern them. The political establishment has responded with predictable defensiveness. Government supporters dismissed Father Chonde as a PF defunct Chipani Carter, suggesting the priest is aligned with the opposition Patriotic Front Party. One commenter accused him of playing politics and warned they would not respond to you as a priest but as a PF defunct Chipani Carter. This reaction is telling. Rather than address the substance of Father Chonde's prediction, rather than provide evidence that contradicts his timeline, government defenders attack his motives and question his political neutrality. Opposition parties, meanwhile, have seized on the priest's words as validation of their own suspicions. Citizens First President Harry Kalaba has promised to end load shedding immediately if elected, arguing the crisis is a result of policy choices rather than lack of capacity. Patriotic Front contender Makibi Zulu has accused the government of deflecting responsibility and questioned whether those who celebrated the Dubai formula can now ask for patience. Historical precedent. Father Chonde's prediction echoes similar patterns observed in other African countries. In South Africa, economic freedom fighters leader Julius Malema made headlines in April 2024 when he predicted that load shedding would return immediately after elections. Malema stated that South Africa would hit stage 6 load shedding a day after the May 29 elections, arguing that power was being held steady by using the remaining reserves only to ensure electoral stability. Malema's statement proved prescient in one sense: he correctly identified the political incentive to minimize blackouts during election periods. Whether his specific timeline materialized is less important than the pattern he identified. Governments everywhere face tremendous pressure to demonstrate competence during electoral campaigns. But this raises uncomfortable ethical questions. If a government can reduce load shedding for elections, doesn't that prove they have the capacity to reduce it now? If emergency measures can be implemented in 2026 to stabilize the grid during vote counting, as Eskom CEO Kamkwamba Kamwenda promised would happen with no power blackouts for 4 days during the election period, why can't those measures be implemented today? The answer, according to Father Chonde's critics, is simple: drought, climate, natural disaster. Zambia's reliance on hydroelectric power makes it vulnerable to environmental factors beyond government control. But Father Chonde isn't buying it. And increasingly, neither are ordinary Zambians. The load shedding crisis exposes deeper systemic failures in Zambian governance. The Zambia Restoration and Development Group warned that if the government does not address the issue of electricity power cuts, its chances of winning the 2026 elections will be slim. Democratic Union President Akim Javu went further, warning that prolonged outages are driving citizens to bars not for entertainment, but simply to charge their phones and laptops, with some Zambians now drinking as early as 10 hours just to access electricity. This is the reality Father Chonde is addressing. Zambians aren't asking for perfection. They're asking for consistency. They're asking why essential services seem to follow electoral calendars rather than genuine need. Several questions remain unanswered. Is Father Chonde's prediction based on inside information, or is it simply an educated guess based on political patterns? The priest hasn't revealed his sources, and he may not have any. His prediction could be based purely on observing how governments behave in election years. Will the government's stated timeline for energy improvements actually materialize? Minister Chikode insists investments will bear fruit in 2026 regardless of elections. Will Father Chonde be proven right or wrong? If load shedding does improve before elections, will it be maintained afterwards? This is perhaps the most important question. Malema's prediction in South Africa wasn't just that blackouts would pause, but that they would return after elections. Will Zambia follow the same pattern? What role, if any, does electricity export play in the crisis? Multiple sources, including opposition leader Kalaba, have accused the government of prioritizing electricity exports to neighboring countries while Zambians suffer. Government officials deny this explains the shortage, but the question persists. Government position. The administration maintains that energy improvements are the result of long-term planning, public-private partnerships, and investment in renewable energy. The timing with elections is purely coincidental, and any suggestion of manipulation is politically motivated. Opposition position: political rivals argue the crisis is manufactured or at least artificially prolonged. They point to Zambia's installed capacity and suggest that better management could alleviate shortages immediately. The 2026 timeline, they say, proves the government can solve the problem but chooses not to until it's politically necessary. Civil society position: groups like the Democratic Union and Zambia Restoration and Development Group fall somewhere in between. They acknowledge the drought's impact but insist the government has failed to adequately respond. They question why emergency measures can't be implemented now rather than waiting for an election year. Father Khan's position: the priest isn't making specific accusations of conspiracy. He's simply asking citizens to observe, to pay attention, to remember what they're experiencing now, and compare it to what happens in 2026. He's urging Zambians to watch and observe how load shedding is going to reduce as the elections approach. Thank you so much for watching today's edition of InspirAfrica Official. This is a story that deserves your attention, your scrutiny, and ultimately, your judgment. I want to hear from you, especially our Zambian viewers. Are you experiencing the load-shedding crisis Father Khan described? Do you believe his prediction will come true? And if it does, if 2026 brings the relief that 2025 could not, what will that mean for your trust in government? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a real conversation about accountability, about the relationship between citizens and their leaders, and about whether essential services should ever be weaponized for political purposes. Father Khan has thrown down a gauntlet. He's given us a testable hypothesis. In the coming months, as we move closer to August 2026, watch what happens with Zambia's electricity situation. Watch whether the government's promises materialize on their stated timeline. Watch whether load shedding reduces, as Father Khan predicted, towards the elections. And then ask yourself, is this coincidence? Or is this calculation? We at InspirAfrica Official will continue following this story. We'll be watching the government's energy initiatives, tracking the load-shedding patterns, and most importantly, we'll be here in 2026 to see whether Father Khan's prophecy comes to pass. This is Nakash, reminding you that the light of truth is more powerful than any darkness, whether the darkness is literal or political. We'll be back tomorrow with more stories that matter. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and for our Zambian viewers, may your light stay on. God bless, and see you in the next one.